Hi everyone, this is Ricky Spencer and welcome to another of our Voices Sociology of Media series for 2023. And today we're very fortunate to have Dr. Anthony Dillon with us, who's going to give us a bit of a deep dive into the issues relating to the Voice referendum that's coming up in a couple of months in Australia. And he's going to give us some thoughts for us to consider and to get the full understanding of what is happening in that space and to really kind of maybe lift the veil a little bit about what's happening in the media, because we really want to get some information out there that's not misinformation, but just some ideas where people can have it come to an informed decision. So as we start, I'd first like to do a bit of a bio introduction. So Dr. Anthony Dillon was originally from Queensland. Anthony is an Aboriginal affairs commentator, an honorary researcher at the Institute for Positive Psychology and Education at Australian Catholic University, Sydney, and is a psychologist. Anthony is proud of both his Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal ancestry, and is actively involved in research in the areas of mental health and Aboriginal well-being. As an active social commentator on Aboriginal issues, he has had several thought-provoking articles published in the Australian newspaper, The Conversation, Daily Telegraph, Herald Sun, and the ABC Drum Online. For more than 2 decades, he has been telling audiences that Aboriginal affairs is everybody's business, and that political correctness, a focus on differences and identity politics, is killing Aboriginal people as fast as drugs and alcohol. And his writings can be found at his website, which is anthonydillon.com.au, which will include a link to this important broadcast. Welcome.
Thank you. I should say, you said you're privileged. I feel privileged that you chased me, found me, invited me on. So thank you.
Thank you. And I'm just so everyone knows, I'm coming from the lands of the Wurundjeri people. And so let's sort of deep dive, Anthony. What got you interested in the field of psychology?
A family friend many years ago helped me when I was going through a rough period in time. 17, I was age of 17, having conflict with some close family members. And this family friend, which I didn't know very well, but an auntie said, look, you really should have a chat with him. So I reluctantly went. And it was refreshing to find that someone was able to talk to me, make sense to me, and didn't necessarily have to have gone through what I'd been through to understand me. And, there is this myth that you can only understand someone if you've been through what they've been through. And he understood me very well. So I think that planted the seed, and I was kind of on the fast track for maths and science at uni, and that's what I loved. And that led me into other things, but that seed had been planted. And so many years later, I jumped into study of psychology. And like when I first did my undergrad degree, that was sort of back in the days where I thought you did uni once and that's it. You kind of get a job and you stay in a job forever. But as I was growing up, I discovered that many adults go back and do uni. And that's what I decided to do. I thought, okay, look, I always had that sort of love. I'd like to be able to help people the way that friend helped me. And I did it. And, fortunately, there's many learning institutions which take in adults and cater to them, the time restrictions and that sort of thing, and you can get a qualification. And so that's what I did.
Did you find there was pressure put upon you, Anthony, because of your identity? That there was a spotlight on that?
At what time in life?
When you were doing your psychology degree?
No, not when I was doing the degree. That sort of spotlight sort of come on me when I become, I guess, a little bit more well known in the public arena. Certainly when I started studying, I didn't have a public profile or anything. So I did, yeah. That's as the internet come on the scene and I started being more visible. Then there was a spotlight put on you for both good and bad things.
How does that impact on your health? Because I've just that comment you made, especially upon the identity politics, which I think is something that I'm really passionate about and live it and feel it. Does it make it? How does it present for yourself? Because everything you say, I guess, can get written up, and then you have people that either agree with what you say or those that don't. How does that sort of impact you as a person?
Look, generally it's okay simply because you've got supporters. And even if you cop a lot of criticism, just saying that there's one or two out there who support you, that is very reassuring. Combine that with the fact that I come from a good strong family,
Mhm.
so I'm fortunate in the sense that a lot of people haven't come from good, strong, loving families, and they need to be understood and nurtured. I was lucky, so um, having that good family background, and then knowing that I had supporters out there in amongst some of the haters
Mm.
was that got me through quite okay. And of course, you know, giving my messages were saying what I said were messages that I believed in. So I was copying criticism, but it was for what I believed in.
And one of the areas at the moment is the proposal referendum that the government is now anchoring towards later in the year. And we wanted to get your views just to kind of lay the scene, the foundations for people, especially year 12 students who are listening to this, to kind of come to an informed decision for themselves. So perhaps would you like to just sort of lay out what you see are the critical issues we need to think about when it comes to the proposal of the voice?
Okay, you said a key word there, informed. So that's what I'm going to jump onto. And I've just, wrote an article the other day, which isn't published yet. I haven't got nowhere to put it yet, but it helped sort of distill my thinking. And what I realized was, I think a lot of people are going to make, when it comes to referendum day, they're going to be guided more by emotion
Mhm.
than reason. And in this article I wrote, I gave plenty of examples of emotion. And, you've had some people say, this whole referendum thing, it's about walking together, reconciliation. So, and then you had, I'll say the name, Linda Burney.
Mhm.
She made a comment about problems in Alice Springs recently, which I went up there, by the way, after all the problems up there. I went up there to the school just to work in the school and help the
Mhm.
kids.
Mhm.
Okay? Funded the whole thing myself. Just went up there
Oh, okay.
to work with kids. I just thought they needed something. But anyway, Linda had said about the voice, the voice could have prevented this. If we'd have had the voice, it would have stopped the alcohol problem from escalating to the disaster that it was. Now, I'd like to know how it would have helped.
Mm.
Linda hasn't told us how, but I think that's very emotive when you say those sorts of things. So, Linda's not alone. There's been lots of other people talking about, it's the right thing to do. And I think you're going to have a lot of people, when they hear come referendum day, whatever the wording is, they're going to be answering a kind of a proxy question. That is, do you want to help Aboriginal people? Regardless of what words they see, it'll form in their mind as, do you want to help Aboriginal people? Because there's been a lot of emotion put into this. Does this make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
But also, the latest claim that apparently Mr. Albanese is getting some superstars on board to promote the voice. So, a lot of us will go out and buy brand X when our
Mm.
favourite sports star uh,
Mm.
is, using it. I drink Coke. If Rod Stewart started drinking Pepsi, I'd start buying some Pepsis. We are influenced by these things.
That's
So much.
to that point, I just want to add, and that sort of, I was a bit taken back when we heard on the news that, was it Collingwood football?
Yeah.
The club has now come out as saying, yes, that we want the voice. And I thought to myself, okay, what's happening here? And I just see if you were saying that. What's happening with this space, Anthony? What's happening that we're getting now different like spaces like footballers coming out with this? What implication does this have?
Well, not the sports club, but I think I read a statement from your university the other day, taking a pro-voice position. And I'm not in favour of that. I don't think it's a good thing. A more general statement, we are for Aboriginal people, is great. But when it comes down to specifics, I don't think they should be doing it. So people are hearing it all the time. And there is I don't want to make this a psychobabble session, but I have a psychology background. There is a term called illusory of truth, which basically just means when you hear something enough times, you're more likely to believe it. And it's kind of a shame that a psychology theory is needed to explain something which we already know, that if you do hear something repeatedly, you're more likely to do it. So when people are hearing it from the politicians, from the celebrities, from the universities, from corporate people and that sort of thing, that is going to increase the likelihood that they vote for or, say yes. So that, people are being bombarded with the message for emotive reasons, guilt tripping and that sort of thing. And it's undermining the opportunity for people to think these things out for themselves. And, in this article that I, just finished the other day, which isn't published yet, I have said that, everyone has a different logic system. So I can't tell you what to do, but I would just ask people, just listen to their own logic system and decide for themselves what they would vote. And don't be swept up with all the celebrities, the superstars, the emotional blackmailing and that sort of thing. The question should be, how will this voice help Aboriginal people? And related to that is, what will the voice be able to do that can't be done right now? They're the sorts of questions people should be asking. And one thing I'll say, and I say this often, if the voice does get up and it works and it makes things good, I will be the first to say I was wrong. Let's get behind it and let's keep doing what's working. However, if it doesn't, I will then say what I've said before, like after the apology, after we had the first Indigenous minister as a Minister for Aboriginal Affairs, after we've had the second one, I'll say, look, these things that we thought were going to make a difference don't seem to be making a difference. Let's focus on what works. And we know it works. So essentially, getting people into jobs, good education, that sort of thing, getting them out of bad circumstances. Broadly speaking, there's two types of successful Indigenous people. There's people like myself who are born into good circumstances. Disclaimer, okay? I was lucky, I was born to good circumstances. But then you have others who were born to not so good circumstances. That's not to say that there wasn't love or anything there, but they lacked opportunities and they were able to exit. Someone helped them out. They showed initiative. And they got an education. They got a job. So when we look at the architects of the voice, and these are all people I've said many times before, I don't agree with them, but I respect every one of them because they're high achievers. And they should be given that credit. They're high achievers. And they do have voices. They do know where their next meal is coming from. They're living a good life, and so they should. But they did it without the voice. They did it using the formula that works for most of us. That is, get an education, formal or informal. You have people like my father who didn't have a good formal education, but had a great informal education. Read, learnt, from other people, etc. And get a good job, or at least something where you're providing service to those around you, and that's very often a job. But if you don't have a job, that's fine. Something where you're engaged in serving the community.
Why is it that at the moment there appears to be that when any person comes out to question the voice, to say, well, hang on, I'm not quite sure if we should go down that pathway, that they're automatically labeled racist, that they're almost demonized?
Yeah.
Because to me, it's troubling when we start to become attacking the person because the person has a different point of view. And I've just seen that recently with the Liberal Party and the positionality that's been put out there. And although, I'm not a Liberal person by any means, although I was a bit taken back by the amount of personal attack. Why are we delving into this space this way? Because that to me is really troublesome, that we're kind of, going down something that if ourselves and people from community who are attacked, they, yeah.
I'm going to say two things on that. First of all, the quickest way to shut down an argument is to shout racism. So once you shout racism, that is mud that once thrown, it does stick. Even when the person has been cleared or no evidence has been given, once the racist mud is thrown, it's stuck. So that very quick and easy way to shut down an argument, and then by default win your argument because your opponent has been portrayed as a racist. So that's the main reason. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think for us to kind of sit on that with people listening to this, especially students, to analyze what's happening, because when I sort of wanted people to sort of, I'll take the onion skin off to say, well, hang on a minute. The person is saying no. What is their premise? What is their main argument? But we don't hear that. All I'm hearing is, oh, this person is racist. This person is non-progressive. And that's very emotive language, as you mentioned earlier on. And that plays to our defenses because we started to jump. And I was just wondering, because you and your expertise, and do you think that there's the psychology will say is at play, and it's really playing to the emotion of people's sensitivities?
Absolutely. It's emotive, and also it's intellectual laziness. Okay, so you don't have to do a lot of thinking because we all abhor racism. Okay. There's that 0.01%, rednecks who love racism, but most people abhor racism. So if you label something as racist, it's very easy to dismiss it. So there's that mental shortcut, the intellectual laziness. Now, I do want to add one other thing and throw a spanner in the works. I don't like it when I hear the no camp, the right wingers or whatever, and some of my buddies who say we should not vote for this racist apartheid system. I also think that's a bit of intellectual laziness as well. They should point out, like myself and a few others have, why it won't work, what's wrong with it, but to just call it and dismiss it as a racist apartheid system, unless you unpack that and substantiate the claim, I think that's mental laziness as well. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So with people listening at the moment and they want to come to an informed point of view about where they want to sit, are there any resources that you would like to highlight to people to at least have a look at?
Well, there's articles I've written.
Mm-hmm.
You can have a look at those. I'm not saying you have to believe them. I'm just saying have a look at what I've written and get a feel for what I've said and judge it for yourself. Looking at publications like The Australian, will run arguments for and against the voice. So that's quite good. Listen to great people like Chris Kenny. Okay, he's a mate, Sky commentator, and he is for the voice. Okay? And he stands his ground too, because he goes to work where he's got colleagues, a lot of them who are against the voice. So Chris is certainly someone worth listening to, simply just to hear, another perspective on, why you should vote for the voice. That's what Chris is saying. But then, read what I've written, listen to what others have said, look at what Peter Dutton said, unpack it a bit more. But we've got to move past racist, apartheid, that sort of thing. You need to disassemble, unpack them, and look at, what are the real reasons here. And for me, like I said before, at this stage, I cannot see what it is that the voice will do that we cannot already do right now. Now, someone might have that answer for me, and I would likely vote yes. But at this stage, I haven't seen, once we have the voice, it will allow us to do X, Y, Z, and that will improve the lives of Aboriginal people. I haven't seen that.
And just before we wrap up, I want to ask you that one of the questions that sort of put out there at the moment is that some people from the Yes campaign are saying that if there is no yes, if the vote does not proceed to be yes, it is going to impact race relations in Australia and will set us back. Maybe can I have a few words on that?
Look, it may impact on race debates in the media, but I think out there on the street, Aboriginal, non-Aboriginal are still going to be getting on just as well as what they always have. There might be a week or two at the most where there could be some disagreement or silence, but I think for most people, it'll be just be business as usual. Whether it gets up or doesn't get up, I cannot see my relationship changing with any Indigenous person I know or any non-Indigenous person I know. So to come back to your question was, if the voice doesn't get up, is this going to divide the races? No, I don't think it will. It'll just be people in the upper part of the political hierarchy might be hating each other a bit more, or slandering each other a bit more. But for the masses, I don't think it'll make much of a difference. I could be naive, and I'm happy to be corrected on that one.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us on our Voices Sociology of Media, Dr. Anthony Dillon. And we'll have his website on there and some of his work. So if you'd like to read, to get an perspective on the voice, and also come to have an understanding of some of the positions that we need to consider when you come to making your own decision on the day of the vote. Thank you so much for your time today.
It's been a pleasure, and thank you once again for searching me out.